Welcome to Animation Teacher. Today we're going to have a special episode of how to rig the Prontoroni pepperoni character. This one goes out to Erick Tran down in Burbank, California, and this is for your team. Alright, first thing we'll do is we'll launch Harmony Premium. This is Harmony 14.1. And what's nice about this is it's got several features, but we'll get into that another day. So I'm going to file, import, keep as original bitmap, and import a Prontoroni screen cap that I took. I'm going to use the transform tool to move it over to the side here of my canvas. And you'll see on the timeline there's a red dot. It just means you've moved the drawing key. Okay, so let's get drawing. I'm going to use the ellipse tool, and let me see, I'm going to pull up my node view so you can see the symbol. It's just called drawing, so I'm going to click the yellow box and type down Prontoroni. Make sure that you have this apply to embedded parent peg. I'm going to draw a circle, and that'll get our scene palette started. And in each scene palette, it's a character palette. This is the Prontoroni rig, and inside each you have a bunch of swatches. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete all the swatches, and we'll start to create a new one by hitting the plus sign. Double click on the gray, and we're just going to color pick. And I'm going to name this body fill. And I'll go ahead and create some more colors. Now I'm going to create color for the body outline. So I'm going to zoom in here. To zoom in, you hit 2. 2 and 1 will zoom in and zoom out for you, and the space bar will help you pan. So I'm just going to color pick this. And I'm going to name this body outline. I'll use this for all the body outline pieces. As for everything else, it'll just be a fill or a shadow. So this is the body shadow. To reorganize your colors, just click and drag up and down. You want to keep this organized so things are easier to find when you get into more complex characters. So pick a color, you double click, and I'm just going to do this quickly now. You can get singular or multiple wheels for color, but we're just using color pickers at this point. So I'm just going and picking all the colors and renaming or creating new color swatches for our Prontoroni palette, color palette. Okay, sometimes you gotta zoom in real close to get the right color. So here it is. To color the circle, you highlight with the black arrow tool and click your color, basically. Now what's cool is you can enlarge the line by going to Tool Properties. In addition, once it's aligned, you can hold down the contour editor and select the pencil editor. Hold the control button down and click to expand or contract the lines to give yourself some line weight. So to create points, you just again hold down control and click to give it some line variety. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this Prontoroni body. And to fill it, just use the paint bucket tool and fill. I'm going to go ahead and create some more drawing symbols. So all these are basically drawing, they call them nodes. And what we're doing is we're going to create artwork um, using these nodes and putting drawings in them. What I like to do is I like to draw all of my, or clean up all of my drawings using squares and the contour editor. The reason for this is because later on in production you're going to have to alter art, and it's very difficult to alter art that have multiple node points or points in your um, contour lines, I mean. So these points you can pull and push and cross section like this to create artwork. I'm a big fan of editing the contours of the lines to get very clean drawings cleaned up, I should say. So at the risk of boring everybody, I'm just going to speed through this. This takes a little bit of practice, but after a while you'll get it. Now the edges, to soften them up, you just click them and go into tool properties and click on this start and end node here. Again, the pencil editor, hold down the contour editor, and then you can select it. Hit Control to add points. And actually, I forgot to mention this, but to actually increase the length, what I'm doing here is with the contour editor, hitting up and down while it's selected. You can select both sides of the contour or just one of the edges, and you can hit up and down to increase the width. So what I'm doing now is I'm erasing the points here. So you just have to use your editing contour editor tool, select the excess lines, and once the white box is revealed, you can just delete. You can also circle select it all and do it that way as well. Now that's just to flatten, that's the flatten tool. Okay. This is my OCD kicking in. You don't actually have to have it this clean, but it's nice. So click to fill. This is the chef hat fill, and this is the chef shadow fill. We'll be adding the shadows on the hat later on. I'm just going to move the art over here. And now this is an important thing to do. When you're creating raw art, you want to make sure the scaling is precise, and to make sure your drawing scale is precise and consistent, you want to have the black arrow tool selected. Alright, so I'll have to change the line weight here. Let's move it back. Okay, next thing we'll do is we'll create a pivot point. That's a transform, and then you hit the transformation button to set. Now to create pegs, these green boxes, you're going to hit Control P. I'll explain what a peg does, but basically every yellow or every blue box requires a green box to move it. It's more of a industry standard that we have. Okay, next we're gonna make an arm. So here's the body outline. Okay, so that's going to be the arm. Now I'm just nudging it by hitting up and down on my keyboard. Okay, I'm just going to fill that, and then you can just delete that line by selecting it with the black arrow tool. So here's my arm. I know it's straight and what you see there is bent. What we're going to do is we're going to add one of my favorite things. First, let's just change the pivot points. There. One of my favorite things about Harmony is rigging tool for the deformer here, and it allows you to create a curved deformer that bends the arms like so. Did you get that? You can watch it again. It's basically grabbing the hammer tool there. Click, drag, let go, click, drag, let go. Okay, so here's the wrists we're going to make. It's the wrist cuff. And again, we'll start off with the square. If for some reason you don't want to see your deformer anymore, click this white train track looking icon here to get rid of it. Now, when you're moving these pivot points, again, to create new points, you hold Control. But when you're clicking and dragging these points, you basically have to circle, select it, and then hold Alt and pull away. If you've ever used Illustrator, it's basically the same thing. Now I'm setting all these to parent peg. What that does is it's gonna tell the symbol to share the same pivot point as the peg. Now when I say symbol, I mean the blue nodes, rectangles you see there, and the pegs are the green nodes. You can check out my videos of pegs, nodes, symbols, and instances on my channel. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is I want to show you something called a kinetic output. Basically what that does is it allows you to move your arm. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to move my arm, but that wrist isn't connected. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to put this kinematic output, and I'm going to attach it like so to the cuff. So now it just follows along without being warped by the deformer itself. So only the arm is being deformed and not the wrist. To reset, just click the green square box and then click that button there. Okay, next up, we're going to create some more art. So Control R again to create a new drawing layer or a drawing symbol. Now let's do the hand. Okay, so I'm not actually going to use any of those hands. I'm going to sketch my own hand here. I'm going to use the brush tool. The brush tool is a little bit more versatile, but it's not very good for cleanup. So I'm just going to use a green color here just to rough out something. And this is just a resting hand position. I'm going to try to stay on model with what you guys have. Alright, so that's my sketch. Now I'm going to go to the outline layer, the O layer here, and draw a hand here. Just going to clean it up. Okay, so whenever you do cross sections, you can actually flatten it. Alright, now I just want to smooth the edges and add some line weight. Sorry, smooth the tips of of it. So here's something cool about each symbol. If you go click in the yellow box, you can actually show or hide the overlay, line art, color art, underlay. I did the sketch in the line art and the cleanup in the overlay. So I'm just going to hide the line art. Now, on the overlay is the clean line, so I'm just going to fill it with the hand fill color. There it is. Okay, now using the black arrow tool, again, I'm going to move that over to where I want the resting position of the hand to be. And then, oh wait, we have something missing here. Okay, so I'll just change the parent peg first. I'm actually going to go in and delete this sketch. I can move the sketch too, but I guess we don't really need it now. So I'm going to go into the line art layer here and just find the hand and just delete it. So now our bounding box will be a nice square again. Alright, next up. Okay, so nothing shows up in the line art because we just deleted the sketch. Next up, we'll change our pivot point. Okay, and we'll set it. Alright, now I have to connect that hand to the kinematic output so that the arms will work. Let's test it out. There it is. Cool. Alright, so that works. Now we got a one-armed circle with a hat. Let's put it in a resting position. Let's move on to another piece. The Prontoroni mouth. Okay, so let's find the mouth. Now with that highlighted, you can just start drawing right on top of your reference. Let's just thin out the line here. So you'll notice, much like Photoshop, there are a lot of sub-selection menus, and every tool has its own tool properties. If you have a look at my video on the user interface, it's the intro to Harmony video. I go over all the aspects of Harmony that we use in production. Okay, so we're just going to clean this up. Once again, to get the pencil editor, you're going to hold down the contour editor and select the pencil editor. Adding points, again, is clicking Control, and adjusting the points is holding Alt. Okay, so here's my mouth. Just gonna nudge it over. It's grayed out because it's underneath the pepperoni, so we're gonna have to move it along the composite here and layer it on top. The hierarchy of the layers goes from left to right. I'm just gonna change the line weight a little bit more. Let's give it a little bit of a chin. Okay, and we'll set our parent peg. Okay, and we'll hit Control P to give it a peg, and we'll set our pivot point. So having it set to parent peg means that both the drawing symbol, the blue square, and the green square, the peg, share the same pivot points. Okay, so let's reorganize this a little bit. Highlight it all, Control P to get a peg, then highlight it all again, Control Shift G to make it a group. Alright, you can give this group a peg if you want. Control P. Now to go in the group, you hit an arrow, and you can reorganize by clicking that button there. So every group and deformer and every white box has an arrow on the right. To get into it, you just click it. Let's create another arm. So I'm going to copy and paste special. Paste special and always create new drawings. And we're going to create new columns. What this does is it's going to create a brand new copy of our arm. And I'm going to name this a right arm. Now, the difference between copying and pasting in Harmony works like this. If you Control C and Control V, you're going to get a clone. So whatever changes you make to that clone affects the original. When you paste special, whatever changes you make to the clone is independent from the original. So those are the main differences. To paste special, the shortcut is Control B as in bear. And to paste normally is Control V like in van. Alright, so now that we have our arm, I'm going to connect everything and hit this mirror button. And there we go, we got our arm. Okay, let's add another layer, Control R. And let's create our eyes. Alright, so I'm just going to connect this peg here. That top peg usually we call the parent peg or the master peg. Alright, so let's draw his eyes, or its eyes. I don't know if this pepperoni is male or female. Here we go. Using the contour editor, again, Control to add points, hold Alt to drag the contour, or the points of the line. Okay, I'm just gonna tweak this a little bit. When you see a nudging, it's me using the arrow tool. So once you select it, you can just nudge with your arrow tool. Alright, so with the black arrow tool, I'm going to move it into place. Again, setting our pivot points. Oops, gotta grab that properly. Setting our pivot points. Now let's create our pupil. Okay, so again, parent peg. Now you see me dragging these lines all the time. You always want to drag from the bottom and connect to the top of the objects. Okay, so here is the first pupil, just a black oval and a circle within a circle, and we'll just fill that with the eye white and ditch the line. We're going to fill using no gap fill, and we're just going to ditch the outer line. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, we'll have to use the contour editor tool and this contour editing in the tool properties to bring the line in. Yeah, if you don't use that and you use the black arrow tool, it's going to cut your drawing. Alright, so let's move it into place. And we'll set our pivot point. Now you'll notice that I didn't use the black arrow tool at that point because you don't have to if it's just the one drawing that you're going to use. It's good practice to do so, but in this case we got away with it because I've changed the pivot points. Okay, so here's our copy of the pupil. Let's connect it. And I'll move it to the other side. There we go. Now we got, hang on, let me just check something. There. So I'm just going to move it using the black arrow tool. And then we'll set our pivot point. Again, if it's just one drawing, it won't matter, but I'm just trying to show you good practice. Alright, so next up, I want to add some shadows, or sorry, let me just pivot this hat first. And I'm going to add some shadows to the hat. It doesn't really matter what color you use for the outlines here. All we're doing is creating a cross section. And then we're just going to fill it. I got to zoom in. So 2 and 1s to zoom in and out. Okay, click and fill. And then we can just click and delete these lines using the black arrow tool. Okay. And here's my OCD kicking in again. And there, perfect. Nope, not perfect. Alright. Yeah, okay. Yep. Nope, one more. Sorry, OCD. Here we go. We're done. So there's the hat. You should have seen me classically animate or clean up. It takes forever. Perfect. Okay. Okay, here we go. So we're going to create some more artwork. This time I'll create some eyebrows. Left eyebrow. Okay, so even with something as simple as the eyebrow, I'd like to just start off with a clean square and alter it. Just to keep the art clean, that's all. Okay, and nudge nudge. Now again, if you hit shift nudge, you can nudge further, as with any software. Set it to parent peg. And we'll give this a peg, and we'll connect it to our master peg. Oh, let's set the pivot, and then we'll connect it to our master peg. Basically what that master peg does essentially is anything connected to it will be moved as one unit. Alright, let's paste special. Okay, the settings are set. This will be the other eyebrow. We'll put it next door. Using the black arrow tool, I'm going to select it, flip, move. And I'm going to set it. Let's change that to the right. I just realized I named the left and the rights incorrectly, but you get the picture. Okay, so here is the body outline. Now that's what the pen tool looks like when you draw with it. Sometimes you get a clean line, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get a lot of points, sometimes you don't. Okay, so there's the fill. Okay, that's pretty good. That's what it looks like. The blue flower gives you a render. The white flower, which is what we're on, is basically just, they call it the OpenGL. It's like a preview. Okay, let's go into the drawing tab. So this is what it looks like. You got a 12 field guide, and that's the drawing. Now I'm going to copy and paste the art into the color art and delete the line. So now we have our line drawing, and I'm going to put the line drawing on the overlay. So the reason why I'm separating it into 3 different layers is we're going to actually copy and paste the eyes into separate layers, and that'll be used for our eyelids. Okay, so I'm just going to move this over because we're going to have duplicates here. Okay, so I'm creating a eye master peg to control all of the eyes, and I'll group it so we can keep things organized. Once again, highlight everything, Control Shift G, and I'm going to name this Prontoroni eyes. So to go inside, again, you hit the arrow tool. Sometimes this composite gets shifted over. We want to move our composite to pass through here, or make it pass through. The composite will then turn into a trapezoid, which is what we want. Now, the reason why we do that is it honors Z depth. We'll get into that more a little later. For now, I'm going to copy and paste the eyes. And I'm just going to rearrange some things here. Yeah, so really this is supposed to be his right eye, and then this is his left eye. Usually when we have naming conventions, it is native to the character itself, so right arm is actually on the screen left. And so in this case, the right eye is on screen left. So I had all this stuff mislabeled. So I'll fix some of it for now. Okay, so I want to show you something here. This eye here is a duplicate, and I'm just going to rename this as eye white. Okay, and I'm going to just show the eye white, which is in the color art layer here. Now, I hid the other eye for now. That's that. And it's red. To hide it, you hit D. Select it and hit D. To show it again, you hit A. So I'm going to use this as basically the eyelid. Okay. I'll do the same. Oh, if you click that arrow, you get a preview there, but we don't need that really. Alright, so here we go. Eyelid. So I'm just going to hide that. D to show you. So this is our eyelid. It's basically just the outline. We're only showing the overlay. So again, these are all the layers inside. We're only using the overlay layer. So that's the line art layer, or sorry, the color art layer with the eye white fill. Okay, so that's on top. So this, so far, we have our pupil that I want to show you something cool. This thing here in their node library is called a cutter, and you connect it to the bottom like so of the pupil, like so, and then you connect the eye white above. Okay, now you can flip the cutter by inverting it, hitting that yellow box, but you still want to see the white underneath, so you're going to put a connection point behind. So now you have two connection points in the composite, one with the cutter and one without, and this is the effect it gives you. Okay, so that's disabled by hitting D, so this is what it looks like without the cutter, and to show it again, hit A, and that's what that looks like with the cutter. So what you're getting basically is a reveal of the eye, and then it cuts away when it reaches the end of the eye white. And then the second eye white line or connection to the composite shows the eye white underneath. Now we're going to create a pupil composite. A composite will allow, it's basically like a doorway path that all the items connected to it share. So now we're going to use that doorway and put both of the pupils on it, or in it, and connect it to the cutter. So now it's both of them. Anything connected to that pupil composite will be cut by the Prontoroni eye white. Alright, so now we have our moving arms, we've got our eyes that are cut. Oh, I forgot a pivot point there. Let's set that. And we have our whole rig, which is fully connected. There you go, to the master peg. Let's adjust the pivot point. Okay, there we go. We have our hat, which you can squash and stretch. Actually, let me show you something cool with this. So click and drag to get a curve deformer. Click and drag and let go. Click and drag and let go. And now you set it and you have a deformer. There are limitations, of course, but you can do quite a bit with it. And to hide the deformer, just hit that white track. To show the tracks, you hit the orange one. Alright, so now we go to drawing substitutions, or instances as I'd like to call them. So we're going to go duplicate drawings, and now you have drawing number 2. Now drawing number 2 is an exact duplicate of drawing number 1. So the only difference is we're going to start to make some changes to it. So the first notable thing I'm going to do is give it some eyelids. I'm going to go to Tool Properties and Flatten. And we're going to fill using the body color. And I'm just going to erase. Just erase it. Okay, and then we can clean up after. Okay, so we'll add some line thicknesses, and we're going to erase a little bit of the color art because that's going to get cut as well, or covered as well. So there's our second instance. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a side-by-side and see if I need to tidy up anything, any loose ends. So it looks like I have to add a gap on this line here to give it a little bit of texture, I suppose. So I'm just going to tweak this. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Pretty close. I'd say pretty darn close. And that's the Prontoroni rig. Thanks for watching.